Okay, so let's talk about Capcom. Now, Capcom has been on this big remake kick recently, right? With Resident Evil 2, which we call Resident Evil 2 Remake. And now we've had Resident Evil 3, which just had its review embargo lifted, and it didn't do bad. Like, I don't consider an 80 on Metacritic bad, but when you compare it to something like Resident Evil 2 and just how good of a remake that was, I can see why there was disappointment with the way they've apparently handled Nemesis and some other aspects of the game, coming down to even cut content, but I'll be checking it out myself this week when I get a chance and giving my own opinion on it, probably on the podcast this weekend. But Capcom most likely would be looking towards the future now for another remake of some kind, because while we just talked about Resident Evil 3, it has, for the most part, I would say, worked out for them. Now, what's interesting is Video Games Chronicle did put out a report based around Capcom shooting for another remake, but one that's bigger than Resident Evil 3. And then we also had Dusk Golem kind of throw in some information there as well, saying that it will be Capcom's 2022 game as long as everything works out and goes well. With game development, things can get pushed back, deadlines change and move, and who knows. But a 2022 release would mean that it would be also designed with the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 in mind. And that's exciting stuff, considering the direction that they have been going in with their remakes. Now, the studio that is apparently working on this big remake ran support on Resident Evil 3, meaning that they did not have, I guess, the ultimate decision-making power, but more or less they were the people that would help with assets or environment building and just helping out to get the game done when it's supposed to be done, right? Running support, that's typically what they end up doing. But this looks like they're going to be taking the lead here, and with VGC's tweet saying that the former Platinum Games CEO is behind this newly formed studio by Capcom, which started with running support for Resident Evil 3 M2, not to be confused with M2 that's done emulation for companies like Sega. This one is spelled 2, TWO, not the number 2. Yeah, it's not confusing at all. But since a lot of people were thinking, oh, Dino Crisis. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that makes sense, right? We've done Resident Evil a couple of times now. Let's move over to Dino Crisis. Well, that appears to not be the case. Dusk Golem mentioned that it's not Dino Crisis, and it's also not Code Veronica. Well, that eliminates some games that, I mean, again, most of us jump to Dino Crisis as being the next one. It'd be really cool, I think, to see that game in the RE engine. I think it'd be amazing. But if it's not that, what could it be? That's where things start to become interesting. What is bigger than Resident Evil 3? Could it be Resident Evil 4? That would be something to see. Now, look, Resident Evil 4 has been released on too many platforms. It's everywhere. If there's a new platform, chances are Capcom is right behind the release with a Resident Evil 4 version of the game for it, right? They're just like, oh, we're going to drop it there, 20 or 30 bucks, we're good to go. But what if they decided to go back and instead of just release a port of it, do a full-on remake of that game? Now, that game is, I guess it's older, right? By 2022, it would be pretty old. What was it, 2004, 2005? When it dropped on the GameCube? Yeah, that'd be pretty old then. That'd be, 17 years old at that point. You could make the case that a remake would be big time for it and could even make the game that much better and take it to the next level, although Resident Evil 3, for some people, seems to have taken a step backwards, but I feel like Capcom would put quite a bit of time into Resident Evil 4's remake if they really were going to do it. There's also the question of, does Resident Evil 4 even need a remake? Because, I mean, it still holds up. Sure, the controls they're better on the Wii. I think it even makes it a bit too easy on the Wii, but I still think it works well enough. But if they did bring it up to current times, I would assume they would play around with some of the controls and other things in the game. But visually, going to like the PS5 and the Xbox Series X would probably be mind-blowing for us. But what if there was another game? What if they remade up to the PS5 and the Xbox Series X the original Resident Evil. Would that blow people's minds? I think it would. Would it be bigger than Resident Evil 3? Yeah, I mean, it's just Resident Evil. It's the original one. But if I had to pick one, and I still think it's from the Resident Evil series, I mean, this is a studio that ran support on Resident Evil 3. Most likely they then transitioned into another Resident Evil game. I'm kind of leaning towards, believe it or not, Resident Evil 4. That would be crazy. Now, there's apparently a Resident Evil game coming out in 2021 as well, next year. And that sounds like it's going to be a strange one, which that'd be pretty funny if it was like a turn-based RPG or like a tactical-based RPG. That would annoy some people. But it seems like over the next couple of years, we're going to have some Resident Evil stuff to look forward to, which is exciting. So here's hoping, for me anyway, that Resident Evil 4 gets a remake on the PS5 and the Xbox Series X in 2022. Exciting stuff. But let me know what you guys think. Maybe Capcom just goes full on insane and they remake Mega Man Legends, right? That'll happen. But let me know what you guys think about this one down below and what Capcom could be remaking with M2. Not M2, of course. I'm talking about M2, that studio. And make sure you guys like the video on the way out if you enjoyed it. Dislike if not. I'll see you guys next time.